Hi. We spent some time in F.F. Bruce's book, The Hard Sayings of Jesus. It's part of a library, the Jesus Library, edited by Michael Green. Later on, at the urging of Michael Green, F.F. Bruce did another book called The Real Jesus for the same series, the Jesus Library, and this section we want to look at is on the resurrection. The first section of the chapter that Bruce calls The Risen Lord is on the burial and the empty tomb. Here he goes. So far as the Romans were concerned, the bodies of crucified criminals might be left hanging for several days after death as a warning to others. But in Judea, the Roman administration paid some respect to Jewish religious susceptibilities. By Jewish law, it was not proper that corpses should be left hanging after sunset, and that was especially important when, as on this occasion, the next day was the Sabbath. The Jewish authorities therefore made representations to Pilate, who gave orders for the bodies of the three men to be taken down from their crosses. The legs of the two bandits were broken to hasten death, but by this time Jesus was already dead. One of the soldiers, says John, pushed a spear into his side just to make sure. John saw conformity with ancient prophecy, both in the negative fact that Jesus' legs were not broken, and in the positive fact that his side was pierced. The bodies might be unceremoniously disposed of, but if the family or friends or of an executed person requested leave to bury the body, the request would normally be granted. Leave of this kind had evidently been given to the friends of John the son of Ezekiel, the crucified man whose ossuary was discovered in 1968. In the case of Jesus, it was not a member of his family or one of his close followers who secured his body for burial, but a member of the Sanhedrin, Joseph of Arimathea. He was a sympathizer with Jesus' message of the kingdom of God and plucked up courage to approach Pilate and ask for Jesus' body. He had a plot of ground quite near the place of execution, and when his request was granted, he took the body and placed it in a rock tomb hollowed out in that plot. Time was pressing, for the Sabbath would start at sunset, and nothing more could be done till the Sunday morning. The empty tomb. Early on the Sunday morning, Mary Magdalene and some other women who had followed Jesus and his disciples from Galilee to Jerusalem came to the tomb to pay their last respects to his body, since there had been no opportunity of doing so on the Friday evening. To their dismay, they found it empty, and concluded, naturally, that the body had already been moved. When Christians affirm their belief in the resurrection of Christ, they are not referring primarily to the fact that his tomb was found empty. They are referring to the fact that on that first day of the week, Jesus appeared to several of his disciples alive again, alive not merely for a further brief spell, but alive forevermore. The early Christians did not believe that Jesus was risen again because they could not find his dead body. They believed because they had found the living Christ. When they first began to proclaim Jesus in public as the risen Lord, they did not say, "We found his tomb empty," but "We saw him alive." But the terms in which they made their proclamation implied that the tomb was empty. When a tomb has been opened and found to be empty, the obvious assumption to make is either that a body was never placed there, or else that it has been removed. When the tomb of Jesus was found to be empty, it was assumed that the latter had occurred. Mary Magdalene wept as she said, "They have taken away my Lord, and I do not know where they have laid him." John 20, verse 13. She thought that someone, the gardener perhaps, might have removed it, and she asked where it was in order that she might arrange to give it permanent and decent burial. The last idea to occur to her was that Jesus had come to life and left the tomb. Even when he spoke to her, she did not at first think it was Jesus. There was no point then in proclaiming that the tomb was empty. That could be explained very simply. But empty it certainly was, whatever the explanation might be. When the fact that it was empty became a matter of widespread knowledge, those authorities who had no wish to let the disciples' preaching of the resurrection have its way unchallenged, put the story about that the disciples came to the tomb during the night and stole the body while the guards who should have prevented them were sleeping. If it be asked why a more convincing story was not put about, the answer is probably that the authorities, being more familiar with the relevant circumstances than we can be at this late date, knew what they could get away with. I'll put a link in to the saving gospel of 1 Corinthians 15 compared to the Watchtower good news, and next time, what is meant by resurrection.